The training room smelled like fear. David Harper noticed it the moment he walked in with the other recruits. His classmates were already shifting nervously, their various appendages twitching and fidgeting. The Avalii, named Churin, kept ruffling her feathers, making soft clicking sounds. Beside her, a bronze-called Graham stood like a nervous boulder, his rocky skin grinding softly as he moved. David took a seat on one of the benches designed for bipedal species. The room was huge, with walls that could project any environment the instructors wanted. Today, those walls showed peaceful stars and distant galaxies. Nobody was fooled by the calm imagery. Today we run the Apex Predator Survival Drill, Instructor Ral announced. The elderly Avalii's feathers had dulled with age, but his voice still carried authority. This is the exercise that most recruits fail. Some of you will panic. Some will freeze. A few might even need medical attention afterward. Around David, the other species made sounds of distress. Churin's clicks became faster. A Narum in the water-filled suit nearby released bubbles of anxiety. Even Graham, who usually acted tough, seemed to shrink slightly. David raised his hand. Yes, Harper. Ralph's large eyes focused on him. Which type are we running from? David asked. The room went silent. Ralph tilted his head in that bird-like way the Avalii had when confused. Which type of what? The instructor asked. Which type of apex predator? David clarified. I mean, are we talking ambush predator, pack hunter, pursuit predator, or something else? It would help to know the hunting strategy we're dealing with. Ralph stared at him. So did every other being in the room. There are different types. Churin whispered. David looked around, realizing he had said something strange. Well, yeah. I mean, a bear hunts differently than a wolf pack, and both are completely different from how a crocodile or a big cat operates. Then you have aerial hunters, aquatic ones, and stop. Ral held up a wing. You just named 5 different apex predators as if they were common knowledge. They are common, David said slowly. On Earth, anyway. Your world has 5 apex predators. Graham asked, his voice rumbling with disbelief. 5. David almost laughed, but caught himself when he saw their serious faces. No, we have way more than 5. I was just listing examples. We've got them in every environment. Oceans, forests, plains, mountains, swamps, Arctic zones. Pretty much everywhere. The room erupted in shocked chirps, bubbles, and grinding sounds. Ral raised his wings for silence. That's impossible. A world cannot support multiple apex predators. They would compete for resources until only one remained. David shrugged. Earth's pretty big, and the predators specialize in different prey and habitats. Great white sharks don't compete with mountain lions. Orcas don't fight with polar bears for food. They've all got their own territories and hunting grounds. Great whites? Orcas? Polar bears. Churin repeated the words like they were a list of nightmares. How many are we talking about? David thought for a moment. Depend on how you count. If we're talking about true apex predators with no natural enemies except humans, maybe 30 or 40 species. Could be more if you include regional variations. Someone made a sound like choking. David wasn't sure which species it came from. And your people survived this? Ral asked quietly. Well, yeah. We're here, aren't we? David smiled. Humans learned to adapt. We're not as strong as bears or as fast as big cats, but we got smart. We learned their patterns, understood their behavior, and figured out how to avoid becoming lunch. Ral studied David for a long moment. I think I understand now why the Galactic Council was so interested in recruiting humans for exploration teams. Because we're good at running away. David joked. Because you're good at surviving, Ral corrected. Let's begin the simulation. The peaceful star field vanished. Suddenly, they stood in a golden grassland that stretched to the horizon. The air shimmered with heat. Somewhere in the distance, something roared. Churin immediately launched herself toward the nearest tree. Graham crouched low, trying to make his large form smaller. The Narum's suit had a panic button, and David could see the being inside reaching for it. David stood still, watching the grass. He could see movement about 200 meters away, low and purposeful. The pattern looked familiar. It's mimicking a pride structure, David said to Raoul, who was observing from a protected booth. See how they're spreading out? Classic flanking behavior. Probably based on lions or maybe tigers, though tigers usually hunt solo unless it's a mother with cubs. You can tell all that just from watching. Raoul's voice came through speakers. Yeah, predators have tells. The way they move, how they position themselves, the patience in their approach. This one's a pack hunter, definitely. Probably trying to cut off escape routes before the main attack. The simulated creatures burst from grass. They looked like a cross between the big cats David knew and something more alien, with 6 legs and crystalline teeth. Terrifying, but the movement patterns were Earth familiar. Everyone get to high ground. David called out. They're built for running, not climbing. Use the environment. Churn was already in a tree, trembling. David helped Graham move faster toward a rocky outcrop and guided the panicking Narim toward a water feature where the suit could function better. The creatures circled but didn't attack. They were testing, watching, looking for the weakest target. They're waiting for one of us to run, David explained calmly. Pack hunters rely on prey panicking. If we stay grouped and don't trigger their chase instinct, they'll reassess. They won't waste energy on difficult prey when easier options exist. Sure enough, after a few tense minutes, the simulated predators lost interest and loped away across the grassland. The simulation ended. The training room returned. Everyone stared at David. How'd you know all that? Graham asked. David scratched his head. Nature documentaries mostly. And camping. My family used to go hiking in areas with mountain lions and bears. You learn to read animal behavior pretty quick when your safety depends on it. Your people recreate near predators. Churin sounded horrified. For fun, David added. Yeah, it's called wildlife tourism. People pay good money for it. Raoul's feathers ruffled. I think we need to have a longer conversation about Earth, Harper. But first, let me ask you something. In that simulation, were you afraid? David considered the question honestly. A little, but mostly I was just trying to figure out what kind of predator it was supposed to be. Fear doesn't help much when you're dealing with hunters. Understanding them does. Raoul nodded slowly. The next drill is in 2 days. I suspect you'll find it more challenging. Looking forward to it, David said. As the recruits filed out, David heard Churin whisper to Graham. His world has 40 apex predators, and he goes camping near them for fun. What kind of nightmare planet did humans come from? David smiled. Wait until they learned about Australia. David found Churin in the station's observation deck, staring at the planet below. The Avalii looked smaller than usual, her feathers pressed close to her body. You okay? David asked, settling onto a nearby perch. I have been researching Earth, Churin said quietly. I made a mistake. What kind of mistake? I thought your earlier statements were exaggeration. Humans are known for what you call humor, yes. Her large eyes turned toward him. So, I searched your planetary database. David, why did nobody warn us? David felt a sinking feeling. What did you look up? Everything. I started with your apex predators. Then I could not stop reading. Churin pulled up a holographic display. Saltwater crocodiles that can grow 6 meters long and bite with more force than any creature we have discovered. Great white sharks that smell blood from 5 kilometers away. Orcas with intelligence comparable to sentient species, hunting in coordinated family groups. Polar bears that can smell prey through 1 meter of ice. Yeah, those are all real, David admitted. And you have poisonous creatures. Snakes, spiders, jellyfish, fish, octopi, frogs, even mammals called platypus that carry venom. Venomous, actually. Poisonous is when you eat them and get sick. Venomous is when they bite or sting you. David paused. Though we have poisonous things too. Some frogs, certain fish. Chura made a sound like a whimper. Your oceans have creatures called box jellyfish that can kill a human in minutes. Your land has spiders whose bite causes flesh death. Your rivers have tiny fish that swim into body openings and lodge themselves with barbs. Okay, the candor thing is mostly a myth, David said. Well, mostly. And you're focusing on the scary stuff. Earth has plenty of harmless animals, too. I read about your herbivores next, Churin continued. Your plant eaters. Hippopotamuses kill more humans than lions. Cape buffalo are called Black Death for their aggression. Elephants can be territorial and dangerous. Even your deer caused deaths during mating season. David winced. You really went down a research rabbit hole, didn't you? What is a rabbit? Small, fluffy, harmless plant eater. Very cute. I looked up rabbits. They have been recorded eating meat when necessary and can bite hard enough to break human fingers. That's extremely rare, David protested. Rabbits are mostly harmless. Mostly, Churn repeated. That word appears frequently in Earth documentation. Mostly harmless. Generally safe. Usually docile. These are not comforting words, David. Before David could respond, Graham appeared with the Narum, whose name was Bloop. At least, that was the closest pronunciation David could manage. We have been talking, Graham said, about the next drill. And? David asked. We want to understand how humans think about predators, Bloop said through the suit's translator. You were calm in the simulation. We were terrified. What is different? David leaned back, thinking, okay, here's the thing. On Earth, humans aren't apex predators. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most dangerous things in most environments. But you survived, Graham pointed out, right? We survived because we learned to think like predators. My ancestors who didn't understand animal behavior got eaten. The ones who learned patterns, who could read tracks and signs, who knew when to be quiet and when to make noise, they survived and had kids. You're saying humans evolved specifically to understand predators? Churn asked. In a way, yeah. We developed big brains partly because we needed to outsmart things that wanted to eat us. We learned to work in groups, use tools, and most importantly, predict what predators would do next. How? Bloop asked. David pulled up his own holographic display. Let me show you. This is a basic guide to predator behavior that human children learn. He showed them images and videos. A lion stalking through grass, body low. A wolf pack coordinating positions. A crocodile waiting motionless in water. A bear marking territory. See, every predator has patterns. Pack hunters work together and try to separate their prey. Ambush predators rely on surprise and camouflage. Pursuit predators are built for endurance or speed. If you understand the pattern, you can avoid becoming prey. You teach this to children. Graham sounded shocked. Sure, where I grew up, we had bears and mountain lions in the area. Every kid learned the rules. Make noise when hiking so you don't surprise a bear. If you see a mountain lion, make yourself look big and back away slowly. Don't run because that triggers their chase instinct. Don't play dead unless it's a specific type of bear attack. There are different rules for different bear attacks. Churn's feathers puffed with stress. Yeah, black bears and grizzly bears need different responses. For black bears, you fight back. For grizzlies, you play dead unless they're hunting you. Then you fight. Polar bears, you just try to survive however possible because they're the only bear that actively hunts humans. The three aliens stared at him. Your planet is a nightmare, Graham stated flatly. David laughed. No, it's beautiful. Yeah, we have dangerous animals, but we also have incredible diversity. Thousands of bird species, millions of insects, amazing plants, and ecosystems. The predators are part of what makes it all work. How can you say that? Bloop asked. They kill your people. Sometimes, David acknowledged. But we kill way more of them than they kill us. Actually, that's been the bigger problem. Humans got so good at avoiding and hunting predators that we nearly wiped many of them out. Now we have to protect them. Protect the creatures that hunt you. Churn could not seem to process this. They're part of the ecosystem. Without apex predators, prey animals overpopulate and destroy vegetation. The whole system breaks down. Plus, they were there first. It's their planet too. Graham shook his massive head. I do not understand humans. That's okay, David said. Most humans don't fully understand humans either. An announcement echoed through the station. All trainees were to report to the training room. The next drill was beginning early. When they arrived, Instructor Rao was waiting with several other instructors David had never seen before. They all looked serious. We have decided to modify the training program, Rao announced. Harper's performance in the last drill was analyzed. The conclusion is that his Earth background provides advantages we did not anticipate. Are you kicking me out? David asked. No, we are making the drills harder. Ral's eyes fixed on David. Much harder. The next simulation will combine multiple predator types in a single environment. Something that should not exist naturally, but will test your ability to adapt. David felt a flutter of actual nervousness. How many types? 5 different hunting strategies operating simultaneously in overlapping territories. The other recruits made distressed sounds. Churin looked like she might faint. That is cruel, Graham protested. That is Earth, Ral said quietly, still watching David. According to our research, Harper, your world regularly has multiple apex predators sharing ecosystems. We want to see if the others can learn from your example. David swallowed. No pressure then. Indeed, Ral agreed. Prepare yourselves. This simulation will last 3 hours. Extraction is available at any time, but failure to complete the exercise will require repeating the entire course. 3 hours. Bloop's translator made the words sound squeaky. With 5 predator types. Welcome to Earth logic, Ral said. Simulation begins in 5 minutes. Chur moved closer to David. I hate your planet, she whispered. You haven't even visited yet, David said. I never will. I am adding it to my list of places to avoid forever. David smiled despite his nerves. Fair enough. The walls began to change, loading the new environment. David took a deep breath and started thinking like prey that learned to survive. It was going to be a long 3 hours. The simulation materialized around them in layers. First came a dense jungle floor with thick undergrowth. Then massive trees appeared, their canopy blocking most light. Water features rippled into existence, forming a river that cut through the terrain. Rocky outcrops pushed up from the ground, creating caves and high points at IT was, David realized, a perfect killing ground designed by someone who understood predator ecology far too well. This is bad, he said simply. What do we do? Churin asked, already climbing toward the canopy. Wait. David held up a hand, listening. Before we move, we need to figure out what we're dealing with. Movement without information gets you killed. He crouched low, scanning the environment. The simulation was incredibly detailed. He could hear insects, feel humidity, smell vegetation. Somewhere distant, water flowed. Birds called in the canopy, but their sounds were wrong, nervous. Something's hunting the birds, David noted. Aerial predator, probably. A roar echoed from the rocky area. Deep, territorial, announcing ownership. Cave dweller, David continued. Ambush predator using the rocks for territory. That's 2. Ripples appeared in the river. Something large moved beneath the surface, too smooth to be random current. 3. Aquatic hunter. How can you tell all this? Graham whispered. Because it's all stuff from Earth, just slightly modified. David pointed. See those scratch marks on that tree? Way too high for most ground predators. That's a climber marking territory. 4. And 5. Bloop asked nervously. David went very still. In the undergrowth, about 50 meters away, plants moved in a pattern. Not wind, not random. Deliberate, low, coordinated with other movements to the left and right. Pack hunters in the brush, he said quietly. They're already surrounding us. 5. Churin made a terrified clicking sound. We call for extraction, yes? Not yet. David's mind raced. Here's what I know. These predators wouldn't naturally occupy the same space without conflicts over territory. The simulation forced them together, which means each one has a specific zone where they're strongest. So we find the safest zone. Graham asked, there's no safe zone, but there are zones where we have advantages. David pulled out his training tablet and quickly sketched a map based on what he had observed. Okay, aerial predator owns the canopy. Cave predator owns the rocks. Aquatic owns the water. Climber can move between ground and trees. Pack hunters own the open ground. Everything is owned by something that wants to eat us, Bloop pointed out. Right, but here's the thing about territory. Predators don't like fighting each other. It wastes energy and risks injury. They avoid confrontations when possible. How does that help us? Churin asked. David pointed to his map. The boundaries. Where territories overlap, the predators will be more cautious. They don't want to attract attention from competitors while hunting. We use the boundary zones to move. A howl came from the pack hunters. They were getting closer. "We need to move now," David said. "Head for the river, but stay on the bank. The aquatic hunter won't come onto land, and the pack hunters won't want to get too close to the water predator's territory." They moved as a group. David set the pace, not too fast to trigger chase instincts, not too slow to seem weak. He kept them together, making noise to signal they were aware and organized. The pack hunters followed, but kept their distance, shadows in the undergrowth. When they reached the river, David found a spot where fallen logs created a natural barrier. "Here, we can see the water, watch the jungle, and we have our backs protected." "Now what?" Graham asked. "We cannot stay here for 3 hours. We won't have to." David was watching the predator movements. They're hunting, but they're also competing with each other. Eventually, they'll start focusing more on each other than on us. As if responding to his words, a screech came from the canopy. The aerial predator had tried to take one of the nervous birds and attracted the climber's attention. A brief, vicious fight broke out in the trees. "See," David said, "territory disputes. While they're distracted, we move again." Over the next hour, David guided them through the simulation using predator behavior against the predators themselves. When the pack hunters got too close, he led the group near the cave predator's territory, making the pack nervous about ambush. When the aquatic hunters surfaced too near their position, he threw rocks into the water upstream, making the cave predator think something was invading from above. "You are making them fight each other," Churin observed with amazement. "Not fight, just stay aware of each other. Distracted predators are less effective hunters." David found another safe spot, this time in a tree that was too small for the climber to bother with, but high enough to see approaching pack hunters. On Earth, humans survive by being smart, not strong. We learn to use the environment and animal behavior to our advantage. "This is how your ancestors lived," Bloop asked. "Every day like this?" "More or less. Obviously, we built villages and cities eventually, but yeah, for thousands of years, humans dealt with this kind of pressure. It's why we're good at pattern recognition and strategic thinking." Another roar, this time angry. The cave predator had encountered the pack hunters near the rocks. A brief standoff followed, both sides backing away to avoid injury. 2 hours left, Graham noted. "Can we actually survive this?" "We're doing fine so far," David said. "The key is staying calm and thinking. Panic makes you prey." But the simulation was adapting. David noticed the predators were learning, becoming more coordinated. The pack hunters were pushing them toward the water. The aerial predator was making more frequent passes. The climber was cutting off escape routes through the trees. They're working together now, he realized. The simulation is making them cooperate. "That should not be possible," Churin said. "No, it shouldn't. But the simulation is testing us, seeing if we can adapt to impossible scenarios." David thought fast. If the predators were cooperating, the group needed to change tactics entirely. He looked at his companions, each from different worlds with different abilities. "New plan. We stop acting like prey and start acting like something not worth the effort." "How?" Graham asked. "Churin, you can fly short distances, right?" "Bloop, your suit has water jets." "Graham, you're strong and can take impacts." "I'm fast and can climb." "We split up, but stay in sight of each other. Make them choose targets, divide their attention." "That goes against every survival instinct I have," Churin protested. "I know, but on Earth, some animals survive by being confusing. They school like fish or flock like birds, moving in patterns that make it hard to pick out individuals. We do that, but with different species working together." They tried it. David ran one direction. Churin flew to another position. Graham charged toward the rocks. Bloop used the suit's jets to move along the river. The predators hesitated, unable to coordinate on multiple targets, moving in different patterns. Then they regrouped quickly, meeting in the center before the predators could adjust. "Again," David called. They repeated the pattern, each time moving differently, making the predators waste energy trying to predict movements. It was exhausting, but it worked. By the time the 3 hours ended, all 4 recruits were tired but alive. The simulation dissolved, returning them to the training room. Instructor Rao and his colleagues approached. The Avalii looked impressed. Nobody has ever completed that simulation without calling for extraction, Ral said. How did you do it? We learned to think like Earth prey, David said, breathing hard. The kind that survived because they got smart. Churin landed next to him, feathers ruffled, but eyes bright. I still hate Earth, but I understand humans better now. Same, Graham rumbled. Agreed, Bloop added. Ral nodded slowly. There is one more drill level, Harper, designed for advanced students only. Are you interested? David looked at his friends. They looked back at him. We're interested, Churin said firmly. All of us. Ral's feathers ruffled with what might have been pride. Very well. But I warn you, the final level is based on Earth's ocean predators. David grinned. You mean the environment with great whites, orcas, and saltwater crocodiles? Among others, yes. Bring it on, David said. His friends groaned, but they were smiling too. The recreation area buzzed with conversation. Word had spread about the training group that survived the impossible simulation. David found himself surrounded by curious recruits from other programs, all asking questions about Earth. Is it true your oceans have creatures larger than starships? Asked a small, fuzzy being whose species David could not pronounce. Well, blue whales get pretty big, David admitted. But they only eat tiny shrimp-like things called krill. Totally harmless to humans. Mostly harmless, Churin corrected from her perch. She had taken to adding that word to everything about Earth. Your oceans, another recruit said. They have how many apex predators? David counted on his fingers. Depends on the region. Great whites, tiger sharks, bull sharks, orcas, leopard seals, saltwater crocodiles in some areas, giant squid if you count deep ocean. Then there are smaller predators like barracuda, moray eels, sea snakes. The gathered aliens made various sounds of distress. But people swim in these oceans? Someone asked. All the time. Millions of people every day. Attacks are super rare. You're more likely to die from a falling coconut than a shark attack. Your plants also kill people. The fuzzy being looked ready to faint. Only if you stand under them at the wrong time, David said. Look, Earth sounds scary when you list all the dangerous stuff, but it's also beautiful. We have beaches where you can swim safely, forests where you can walk for days without seeing a predator, cities where the biggest threat is traffic. What is traffic? Graham asked. Barícolas. Transportation. Sometimes humans are more dangerous to other humans than any predator is. That is not comforting, Bloop noted. An announcement called for their training group to report to Briefing Room 7. As they headed that way, David noticed the other recruits watching them with new respect. It felt strange. Instructor Ral waited in the briefing room with a guest, another Avalii with deep blue feathers marked with white patterns. This is Instructor Shun, Ral introduced. She specializes in aquatic survival scenarios. I have been reviewing your performance, Shun said, her voice sharp and precise. Impressive, but I wonder if Harper simply got lucky. Earth may have multiple predators, but you have never faced our ocean simulation. I've been in Earth's oceans, David said calmly. Surfing, diving, swimming. Even did a cage dive with great whites once. You entered a protective cage near apex predators for recreation. Shun's feathers puffed. Your species is insane. You're not the first person to say that. Shun pulled up a holographic display showing a vast underwater environment. This simulation recreates the most dangerous aquatic zones from multiple worlds. You will have limited air supply, restricted movement, and poor visibility. Predators will hunt by smell, vibration, and electrical signals. Sounds like Earth's oceans, David said. With one difference, Shun continued. On Earth, you are familiar with the predators. Here, you will face creatures you have never encountered, using hunting methods you may not recognize. David nodded. That's fair. When do we start? Tomorrow. But first, I want to understand something. Shun's large eyes focused on David. Why are you not afraid? Your companions show appropriate fear responses. You show only curiosity. David thought about it. I guess because fear without understanding is just panic, and panic gets you killed. I'd rather learn about something and respect it than just be afraid of it. Respect, Shun repeated. Explain this concept. Well, take great white sharks. They're apex predators, powerful and dangerous. But they're also amazing creatures that have existed for millions of years. They're not evil or out to get humans. They're just doing what they evolved to do. If you understand their behavior, avoid looking like prey, and respect their space, you can share the ocean with them safely. You share territory with apex predators willingly. Shin seemed baffled. We have to. It's their planet too. Actually, humans are working hard to protect sharks now because we hunted too many of them. Same with whales, seals, and other ocean predators. We nearly wiped them out before we realized how important they are to the ecosystem. The room went quiet. Finally, Ral spoke. Harper, your species hunted apex predators to near extinction, then decided to protect them instead. Yeah, took us a while to figure out it was the right thing to do, but we got there eventually. Your people defeated the predators, then chose to let them live. Graham sounded amazed. Defeating them was the easy part once we developed the right tools. Living with them, protecting them, that's harder. It requires understanding and patience, not just strength. Shun's feathers settled into a thoughtful pattern. I begin to see why the Galactic Council is interested in human perspectives. You think differently than other species. We think like prey that survived, David said. Everything else comes from that. The briefing continued with technical details about the simulation, safety protocols, and emergency extraction procedures. David paid attention, but part of his mind was already thinking about aquatic predator behavior. After the briefing, Churin pulled David aside. I have been researching Earth's oceans more thoroughly. I found something disturbing. What now? Box jellyfish, stonefish, cone snails, blue-ringed octopi, stingrays, sea snakes, Portuguese man-of-war, lionfish. David, your oceans have more venomous creatures than some worlds have total species. You're focusing on the dangerous stuff again, because it is all dangerous. I read that Earth's oceans cover 70% of your planet, and humans have only explored a tiny portion of the deep areas. You do not even know everything that lives down there. That's what makes it exciting, David said. There's still so much to discover. There could be enormous predators in the deep that humans have never seen. Maybe. The giant squid was considered a myth for a long time, but turned out to be real. Who knows what else is down there? Churin made a strangled sound. You think about unknown giant predators and feel excitement, not terror. This is not normal. David laughed. Maybe not, but humans have always been curious about the unknown. It's why we explore space, right? Same principle. Space does not have great white sharks. No, but it has other dangers. Radiation, vacuum, extreme temperatures, meteor impacts. At least with sharks, you can see them coming. This does not make me feel better about tomorrow's simulation, Churin said. That night, David had trouble sleeping. Not from fear, but from anticipation. He kept thinking about aquatic predator strategies. Sharks used electroreception to detect prey. Some fish hunted in schools, coordinating attacks. Octopi used intelligence and camouflage. Crocodiles used the death roll technique. What combinations would the simulation use? He found himself looking forward to finding out, then wondered if Churin was right about humans being slightly crazy. The next morning, they gathered at the simulation chamber. This one was different, equipped with water-breathing apparatus for non-aquatic species and full environmental suits. The simulation lasts 4 hours, Shin announced. You will start in a coral reef environment and must navigate through increasingly challenging zones to reach the extraction point. Visibility will decrease as you progress. Predators will become more numerous and aggressive. For hours, Bloop sounded worried despite being aquatic. My suit has limitations. Your suit will function, but you will need to manage power carefully, Shin said. Are you ready? David checked his breathing equipment. Churin looked terrified but determined. Graham's environmental suit made him look like a walking tank. Bloop seemed nervous but more comfortable with the aquatic setting. Ready, David said. The others echoed him. Then begin, Shun said. The simulation loaded, and suddenly David was underwater in a beautiful coral reef. Colorful fish swam past. Light filtered down from above. It looked peaceful, but David knew better. He had learned long ago that on Earth, The most beautiful places often held the most danger. Somewhere in the simulated water, predators were already hunting. Time to show what humans learn from Earth's oceans. David held still in the water, letting his eyes adjust to the underwater environment. The breathing apparatus felt strange but functional. Around him, his companions were getting oriented to moving in simulated water. "Stay together," David said through the communication system. In water, isolated prey gets picked off first. "I see movement," Graham reported. His suit's sensors were more advanced than the others. "Where and what kind?" David asked. "Multiple contacts. Small, moving in patterns. 30 meters, circling. School hunters," David identified. "Probably testing us, seeing if we're prey. Don't make sudden movements. We need to look organized and aware, not panicked." The fish-like creatures appeared at the edge of visibility. They moved together in perfect coordination, each individual part of a larger hunting intelligence. David recognized the pattern from Earth's piranha and barracuda. "They're looking for weakness," he explained. "Any sign of injury, confusion, or separation will trigger an attack. We move as a unit, steady pace, no erratic behavior." They swam forward slowly. The school followed but kept its distance. "How long will they follow us?" Churin asked nervously. "Until something more interesting shows up, or they decide we're not worth the energy." As if summoned by his words, a larger shape appeared in the deeper water below. It moved with the lazy confidence of an apex predator, all power and patience. "Big predator, deep water," David noted. "Probably an ambush hunter. It'll stay below and wait for prey to come to it, or for something to fall from above. So we stay in shallow water." Bloop asked. "For now. But look at the map Shin gave us. We have to cross a deep channel to reach the extraction point eventually." They continued through the reef, navigating coral formations and kelp forests. David kept checking their surroundings, using techniques he learned from diving on Earth. "Watch for movement patterns that don't match the current. Notice when small fish suddenly scatter. Pay attention to shadows and shapes." The school hunters eventually lost interest and peeled away to find easier prey. But the environment was getting darker, the water murkier. Visibility dropping, Graham observed. "Yeah, we're entering the zone where visual hunters give way to other senses. Smell, vibration, electrical signals. How do we avoid predators we cannot see?" Churin asked. "Same way fish do. We minimize our electrical signature, control our movements to reduce vibrations, and stay aware of currents and changes in water pressure." A shape lunged from the kelp. Fast, aggressive, all teeth and hunger. David barely had time to shout a warning before Graham's suit took the impact. The creature bounced off the heavy plating and disappeared back into the murk. "Everyone okay?" David called. "Suit held," Graham reported. "But that was close." "Ambush predator using the kelp for cover," David said. "Classique technique. We need to avoid areas with too much hiding space." They adjusted their route, staying in more open water. It meant being visible, but also meant seeing threats coming. The water grew colder. David's suit regulated temperature, but he felt the change through the equipment. Cold water meant different predators, different strategies. "We're approaching the deep channel," Bloop announced. "According to the map, it's 200 meters across and 90 meters deep. That's where the big predator is waiting," David said. "I guarantee it." "How do we cross?" Churin asked. David thought about it. On Earth, prey animals crossed dangerous areas using specific strategies. Some use speed, some use numbers, some use timing. We use distraction and speed. "Bloop, can your suit create noise or vibrations?" "Yes, the emergency beacon function." "Good." We activate it on a delay, throw it to one side of the channel, then cross quickly on the other side while the predator investigates the signal. "That seems too simple," Churin said. "Simple often works. Predators have evolved hunting strategies, but they also have instinctive responses. A sudden signal that might indicate injured prey will draw investigation." They positioned themselves at the edge of the deep channel. David could see the bottom dropping away into darkness. Somewhere down there, something large waited. "Ready?" he asked. "No," Churin said. But do it anyway. Bloop activated the beacon and sent it tumbling through the water to their left. Immediately, they began swimming across to the right, moving as fast as their equipment allowed. The massive shape emerged from below, heading toward the beacon. David caught a glimpse of something that looked like a cross between a shark and something more alien, with multiple fins and a mouth that seemed too large for its body. They were halfway across when the creature realized the trick. It turned fast despite its size. Faster! David shouted that Graham's suit had powerful propulsion. He grabbed Churin and boosted forward. Bloop's natural swimming ability kicked in. David pushed his own equipment to maximum. The predator closed the distance with terrifying speed. David could feel the pressure wave from its movement. 20 meters from the far side. 15, 10, that they cleared the channel edge just as the creature lunged. Its jaws snapped shut on empty water meters behind David. That was too close, Churin gasped. But it worked, David said. Keep moving. It might try again. They pushed deeper into the simulation. The environment became harsher, colder, darker. Bioluminescent creatures provided eerie light. Strange formations of rock and coral created maze-like passages. 2 hours elapsed, Graham reported. Halfway through. And we're entering the hard part, David noted. Look at the terrain. This is designed for predators that use complex environments. Something brushed past Churin in the dark. She screamed and bolted forward. Churin, stop, David called. Erratic movement attracts predators. But it was too late. Multiple shapes converged on Churin's panicked swimming. They moved like wolves, cutting off escape routes and herding her toward deeper water. Pack hunters adapted for water, David realized. Graham, can you create a disturbance? What kind? Anything that breaks their coordination. Noise, light, vibration. Graham's suit had emergency flares designed for underwater use. He triggered one. Brilliant light flooded the area. The pack hunters scattered, their coordination broken by the unexpected stimulus. David grabbed Churin. Got you. Calm down. Panic is their weapon. Something touched me, Churin said, trembling. Probably just a probe. They were testing a reaction. Now they know you're easily spooked. That is not helpful information, David. But we need to stay calm. We've got 2 more hours in increasingly difficult conditions. They regrouped and continued. The simulation threw everything at them. Fast attackers from above, slow stalkers from below, camouflaged ambushers in the rocks. Even something that used electrical pulses to stun prey. David drew on every piece of knowledge he had about Earth's ocean predators. He remembered documentary footage, dive experiences, and stories from marine biologists. Each challenge required a different response. When the electrical predator appeared, he remembered how sharks sometimes avoided areas with strong electromagnetic fields. They used Graham's suit to generate interference. When a creature using sonar to hunt closed in, David remembered how some fish used bubbles to confuse echolocation. They created a cloud of air bubbles from their equipment. When a patient stalker followed them for nearly an hour, David remembered that persistence hunters eventually gave up on prey that didn't tire. They maintained steady movement and refused to show exhaustion. With 30 minutes remaining, they reached the final zone. The water here was nearly black, pressure increased, and temperature dropped to near freezing levels. I'm reading multiple large contacts, Graham said. All around us. Final test, David said. Multiple apex predators in one area. This shouldn't exist naturally. What do we do? Bloop asked. David remembered something his diving instructor once told him about being surrounded by sharks during night dive. Make yourself boring. Don't act like prey. Don't act like a threat. Just exist as something not worth the trouble. We move slowly and deliberately, David said. No prey behavior, no aggressive behavior. We become part of the environment, not something to hunt or fight. That is insane, Churin protested. Trust me, predators conserve energy. If we don't trigger their hunting or defensive instincts, they'll ignore us. They moved through the darkness, surrounded by massive shapes. David could feel pressure waves from creatures larger than any Earth predator. His heart pounded, but he kept his movements calm and steadied at it was the longest 15 minutes of his life. When they finally reached the extraction point and the simulation ended, all four of them were shaking. Instructor Shun approached with what might have been a smile. Congratulations. You are the first group to complete the ocean simulation without a single extraction call. I never want to do that again, Churn said. Same, Graham agreed. Agreed, Bloop added. David just nodded, too tired to speak. Harper, Shun said. Where did you learn to handle aquatic predators so effectively? Earth, David said simply. Where else? 3 days after the ocean simulation, David sat in Instructor Ralph's office. The view showed the training station orbiting a peaceful blue world that reminded him of Earth from space. The Galactic Council has been reviewing your performance, Ralph said. They have questions. What kind of questions? About Earth. About humans. About whether your species represents a danger to the galaxy. David blinked. A danger? We're just explorers trying to learn. You survived scenarios designed to traumatize experienced soldiers. You think like predators while having the compassion of prey species. You come from a world so hostile that our scientists cannot understand how sentient life evolved there at all. Ralph's feathers ruffled. Some council members find this concerning. And what do you think? David asked. Ralph was quiet for a moment. I think humans are what happens when prey learns to survive impossible circumstances. You're not cruel, not aggressive by nature, but you are incredibly good at staying alive. Is that bad? It is unusual. Most species in the galaxy evolved in relatively safe environments. They became sentient without constant predator pressure. Those few species from dangerous worlds either became apex predators themselves or developed hiding strategies. Humans did neither. We became the thinking species, David said. The ones who survive by understanding everything around us. Exactly. And that makes you unique. Raoul pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. I've been studying your world extensively. The biodiversity is unlike anything we have encountered. Millions of species, thousands of ecosystems, apex predators in every environment. It should not be able to support sentient life. But it does, David said. Yes, and you do not just survive, you thrive. You build cities near volcano zones, create homes in earthquake areas, settle in regions with hurricanes and tornadoes. You swim in oceans full of predators, hike through forests with dangerous animals, and explore caves where one wrong step means death. When you listen like that, we do sound kind of crazy, David admitted. You sound adaptable, Rao corrected. Your species sees danger and asks how to live with it, not how to eliminate it. This is why you now protect the predators that once hunted you. They're part of the ecosystem. Without them, everything breaks down. But this is remarkable thinking for a species that could easily wipe them out. Most races, upon achieving technological dominance, eliminate all threats. Une chose différente. David shrugged. We learned that domination isn't the same as success. The predators taught us to be smart, to work together, to innovate. Why would we destroy our best teachers? Raoul's feathers settled into a thoughtful pattern. The council wants to offer you something. Actually, they want to offer all humans something. What? A position as survival consultants for exploration teams. Your unique perspective and skills would be valuable for missions to unknown worlds. You want humans to teach aliens how to survive dangerous places. Yes, but there is more. The Council also wants permission to study Earth directly, to understand how a world that hostile produces a species that compassionate. David felt protective suddenly. Study Earth how? Non-invasive observation. Scientific teams learning from your ecosystems, your predators, your methods of coexistence. We believe Earth holds answers to questions we have not yet learned to ask. I need to talk to people back home about that, David said carefully. Humanity is protective of Earth. As you should be. It is a treasure, even if it is also terrifying. Raoul paused. Harper, may I ask you something personal? Sure. When you face danger, what do you feel? David thought about it. Respect mostly, and curiosity. Fear too, but controlled fear. The kind that makes you careful without making you stupid. Not anger, not a desire to eliminate the threat. Why would I be angry? The predator is just doing what it evolved to do. It's not personal. Getting angry at a shark for being a shark makes as much sense as being angry at gravity. This is what makes humans different, Ralph said softly. You understand that the universe does not target you specifically. Danger simply exists, and you work with that reality instead of against it. A chime indicated someone at the door. Raoul gestured permission, and Churin, Graham, and Bloop entered. We heard the council is offering David a position, Churin said. We want to formally request to continue working with him. You want to keep training with Harper? Raoul sounded surprised. He taught us more in a few weeks than we learned in months of standard training, Graham said. We want to keep learning, even though his methods terrify you, especially because they terrify us, Bloop added. Fear we understand. Fear we can learn to work with. David felt warmth at his friend's words. You guys don't have to do this. Yes, we do, Churin said firmly. You showed us that survival is not about being fearless. It is about being smart and adaptable. These are skills we need. Raoul looked at the group thoughtfully. Very well. I will inform the council that Harper has a team ready to work with him. But first, I have one more simulation for you. Another predator drill? David asked. No, this one is different. It is called the cooperation scenario. You will face challenges that require working together using each species' unique strengths. What kind of challenges? Graham asked. I cannot tell you. That would defeat the purpose. But I can say this. The simulation is designed by humans who study Earth ecosystems. They want to see if other species can learn to cooperate the way Earth species sometimes do. David thought about unusual partnerships on Earth. Cleaner fish and sharks, oxpeckers and buffalo, humans and dogs. Nature found ways to cooperate across species lines when it benefited survival. When do we start? He asked. Tomorrow. But tonight, I suggest you all rest. And Harper, perhaps share more stories about Earth. Your friends seem to enjoy them, despite their protests. They are terrifying stories, Churin insisted. But good ones, Graham added. Later, in the recreation area, David found himself surrounded by recruits again. Word had spread about the council's offer, and everyone wanted to hear about Earth. Tell us about the persistence hunting, someone asked. How did humans hunt predators? David settled into his seat. Okay, so humans aren't fast like cats or strong like bears. But we have something better, endurance. We can run for hours in heat that would kill most animals because we sweat to cool down. You leak water to prevent overheating, someone asked. That seems inefficient. It's actually brilliant. It means we can keep moving when other animals have to stop and rest. Our ancestors would literally chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You ran prey to death. The listeners sounded horrified and impressed. Sometimes, but it was more than running. We tracked animals over days, understanding their patterns and habits. We worked in teams, communicating and planning. We used tools to extend our abilities. Hunting wasn't just about killing, it was about understanding, and you used these same skills against predators when necessary, but mostly we use them to avoid predators. If you understand how a predator hunts, you can predict its behavior. If you can predict its behavior, you can avoid it. Churin spoke up. Show them the video you showed me. The one about the photographer. David pulled up footage of a wildlife photographer lying on the ground while a pride of lions walked past him. The human remained completely still, barely breathing. He understands that lions see sudden movement as prey behavior, David explained. By staying calm and still, he becomes part of the landscape. Not food, not threat, just another object. That is insane bravery, someone said. No, it's knowledge. Bravery without understanding is just stupidity. He knows lion behavior, respects their capabilities, and uses that knowledge to stay safe while documenting their lives. Why document them? Another recruit asked. Why get close to such danger? To understand them better. To teach others. To protect them by helping humans appreciate how amazing they are. David smiled. That photographer's work helped convince people that lions are worth protecting. His risk saved lives, both human and lion. The group fell silent, absorbing this. Earth is still terrifying, Churin said finally. But I begin to understand why it produces humans like you. You had to learn compassion and intelligence together, or you would not have survived. Maybe, David said. Or maybe we're just stubborn. Humans don't like giving up. That is an understatement, Graham rumbled. Your people survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, and countless predators. Stubborn does not begin to cover it. David laughed. Fair point. As the group dispersed for the night, David looked out at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, a blue marble full of life and danger and beauty. He missed it, but he also felt excited about what lay ahead. The galaxy was huge, full of unknown worlds and challenges. But David had been raised on a planet where danger lurked everywhere, and life found ways to thrive anyway. He had learned from apex predators, survived hostile environments, and discovered that understanding was more powerful than fear. Whatever the universe threw at him, he would face it the way humans always had, with curiosity, adaptability, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Somewhere on Earth, a great white shark glided through dark water, hunting with patient precision. A wolf pack coordinated across miles of forest, communicating in ways scientists still studied. A polar bear crossed Arctic ice, surviving in temperatures that would kill most life. And humans watched, learned, and protected them all. That was the real lesson Earth taught. Not how to destroy danger, but how to respect it, understand it, and find ways to coexist with it. David smiled. The galaxy had no idea what humans were capable of because humans themselves were still figuring it out. But one thing was certain. Wherever humans went, they would bring that fundamental Earth wisdom with them. Survival was not about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about being smart enough to learn, brave enough to adapt, and compassionate enough to protect what taught you those lessons. The apex predators had taught humans well. Now it was time to share those lessons with the stars.